Jew. I don't know whether you know this, he held mass for Hitler. Hitler was a Catholic. He held mass for Hitler the day he killed himself. And there was a derech for Nazis to get out of Europe through the
South America,
through the Vatican. And it's horrific, you know. Again, it's what one hopes, you know. I've seen like really good religious people. It doesn't matter Jewish, Muslim, it doesn't matter, good religious people, but people like if that's what a religion represents, then. Okay. So when I was when I was walking away the other day, and I said, you know, when I said what I said in the gas chamber, I thought what I should have put towards it, what I put towards myself. You have a choice. Do you want to be Franz Stangl, or do you want to be the PSS Narebi? So I wouldn't even think for a minute. Now, who do you want to be? And there are a number of sugyas that come up here. This is where I really want to go now. There is this terrible dilemma of a family, every family who have little children, especially little children who have blue eyes, a bit of blonde, they've got a bit of a glosy look about them. They can save their children. And there are people who are willing to take them in. A lot of these people have an agenda. It's not like in the story someone mentioned Sir Nicholas Winton, of blessed memory, but when he gave to non-Jewish families in England, but they weren't religious. There wasn't a worry that they would try and make them Christian. There was no agenda in these families. It was one of the survivors through Winton became a vicar, a very proud missionary. But most of them, you know, they knew that they were Jewish, and a fantastic story. But in Poland, it's different, right? You give the Jewish children to a Polish family. Part of the training for these Jewish children, in order they survive, is that they can do all the Geschäft, all the Avodah Zarah. They have to know how to do the cross, and have to say the rosary, and this and that. They have to learn it, because it's the difference between living and dying. And the tragedy is that the kids get there when they're 2 years old, 3 years old, they forget their parents bichlal. And there are some terrible scenes, you know, after the war when Jewish organizations came to get the kids didn't want to leave, right? They didn't want to leave. Where are you taking me? They hated their parents, like, where are you taking me? And they got you. And what does a parent do? A parent has to decide what to do with their child. And whatever. What to do with your child, and that you can save your child. You know, Aaron Barak was, Supreme Court in Israel. He was thrown over the wall by his parents as a baby, and that's how he survived. And so what do you do? And there are different points of view. You know, there are people who just would not do it, and they say, you know, it's like the hafuch of that midrash in Shemot. You know, I'd rather they have olam haba than lose everything, you know, as opposed to what Miriam says to Amram. And but there were other Jews who did it, and you know, they said, if I can save my child, I'll save my child. You know, it's my job to look after my child, and I'll save my child. So we get through the war, and after the war we have two massive halachic issues. One is aguna, which is massive, and the other is these children. This is a future generation. They're all over the place. Who knows how many people here? Who knows, right? And there's some very big rabbis, some extremely great rabbis. Rav Kahaneman and Rav Herzog. They make it their business to come here and to look for Jewish kids. And they have meetings. And Rav Herzog went to see the Pope actually, and. The story goes that as he walked out of his meeting with the Pope, he said to his assistant, "Get me to a mikvah as soon as possible." This is just absolute trauma. And they walked around trying to find Jewish children. How do you identify a Jewish child? What does a Jewish child know?
Shema.
That's what he knows. He knows Shema Yisrael. And it's true stories of the way they would identify kids. They would scream out Shema Yisrael, and if a kid responded, they knew that's a Jewish kid. And saved a lot of Jewish kids. You know, there's a fight for survival after the war. How can we continue? How can we keep going? I would like to say, you know, that there were many priests who spoke out. And who ended up in camps because they spoke out against Hitler, and they, you know, generalize about everyone, but when you talk about the Vatican, it's the flagship of Catholicism, and it's something that is, it's not a matter of we say sorry. It's just disgrace. It's what it stands for, and that would take precedent, and it went on and on and on. That I have a film, a Polish film about a Ukrainian man who saved Jewish people in the sewers during the war. It's a true story. It's a movie, yeah.
They made a movie out of
They made a movie, and at the end of the war, he brought them out of the sewers. They had a celebration. He was knocked down by a truck, and his neighbors said, "Jesus got him. He was punished for saving the Jews. He was punished for saving the Jews." And so this is another sugya, but the further you go east, the bigger the cross is. And it wasn't just the greed. There was greed. They wanted the clothes. The Jews weren't any richer than them in most of the shtetl. It was the religion. It was a belief. It was encouraged by the priest, or not discouraged by his silence. That's why, just to make it pertinent to us, I always feel that it's so important. I don't think I'm not really the head of anything, but I speak to my students, and I think that when things are wrong, it is the duty of who anyone is listening to say they're wrong. And if they're not prepared to make a stand. In South Africa, I was amazed by the chief rabbi a few years ago when Zuma was up for whatever he was up for, and he happened to be there, and he made a public statement which I thought was a real Kiddush Hashem. This is wrong. And I don't know what the ramifications were for him politically. I don't know whether he even thought about it politically, but I think a religious leader ultimately has to show a derech, has to, if it's not there, then what's religion for? I mean, it has to be, yeah. And if you're not prepared to say the statement, then I don't think you can do it. And so there are many, it will be, and good Christians who help Jews and risk their lives. And the family we would have gone to this morning were religious Christians, and they were all killed. And she was pregnant. They were all killed for hiding Jews. And it's a subject that I often place. You and I know that if you asked any from rabbi, can you risk your life and the life of your families to save a goy? Really, it's not so pasha. The halacha says take them in, or it might be derech shalom. So there are a lot of very righteous people, but it's just another element of the complexity of this story. When they got to Kovna, there's film of this. There's footage of the people of Kovna getting the Jews together and kicking them, treading on their heads, and then playing the accordion. There's film of this. And the Germans are taking pictures. The hate, and it's a religious hate. It's a religious hate. It's not never in my camp. They banned Shechita in Poland in 1936. It had nothing to do with my camp. And
centuries and centuries, Sunday sermons in the churches active against Jews. So, it's inbred in their minds over the centuries. This is what has to be done. It's something you can't just overnight.
Right, you're right. And that's exactly what's happening now. That's the problem we have in Israel as well. The hate and the hate and the hate. And we had to choose between two places this morning, and the other place we could have gone to, we'll hit that theme anyway. But I think this is a critical theme. It's just the complexity of this whole story. It's just every day you open up another page and you see another factor and another factor. And unfortunately, this is part of the story as well. Nothing significant about this particular church. It's just we like to stand here and play a song for them, just to remind them who's right.
How do they feel about it?